Tom, what is the update situations of the humanitarian crisis in Myanmar, and which area are in the most in need of emergency in the humanitarian crisis happening?
They are just immense right across the board. I mean, people are starving. The level of malnutrition has steadily increased. There are 18.6 million people who we know are in dire need of humanitarian aid right now. That compares with 1 million that were in need of humanitarian aid before the coup. Think about that, 18.6 versus 1 million. We know what's driving this humanitarian aid crisis. And so we need to do two things. We need to address this massive need by getting the attention of the international community and letting them see and hear how life and death this situation is. And then we have to address what is driving this humanitarian aid need. And that is this military junta and their assaults on the people of Myanmar that continue unabated. So it's two-pronged. We need to address this escalation of humanitarian need, 18.6 million, and skyrocketing. And we need to address the source of this and address what is driving this great suffering in Myanmar.
Currently, ASEAN is dealing with the military junta and delivering aid through the Red Cross, but those area in conflict or the junta fighting against the ethnic and resistant forces are in need of it. They are in need of a humanitarian crisis. So that is conflicting. You know, the one getting the humanitarian crisis through the Red Crosses, which is not to the area of in ethnic resistant forces in a control area. So what would be the solution?
Well, you know, I draw an analogy. If you're a physician and you have a patient who is sick, the first principle is follow the Hippocratic Oath, which is do no harm. So do nothing in the name of trying to help that is going to actually hurt, that is going to harm. And I think that I am deeply concerned by putting aid into the hands of a military junta that is responsible for these atrocities. The likelihood of that aid being weaponized is great. The idea of the junta continuing to try to legitimize itself, create this impression of what they don't have, that is real legitimacy, by manipulating this aid and this requirement for MOUs and other documentation. Both of those things are very dangerous, and they, I believe, are not helpful. I think what we have to do is, as any good physician would seek to do, is not only address the symptoms and alleviate the symptoms, but cure the disease. And the disease is the living hell that the military junta of Myanmar is causing for the people of Myanmar. That's what we have to cure. So how do we deal with the enormous human suffering? Go to where it is. Direct it toward those who have the greatest capacity to deliver that aid, that are accountable to the people to whom they're delivering that aid. And that's, we're looking at rapidly expanding areas that are in these conflict zones and rapidly expanding needs. And that's where I think we need to be focusing our energy and attention as an international community.
Yeah, and when it's come to the international community, the United Nations is transferring the responsibility to ASEAN, which is ASEAN set at 5-point consensus, and humanitarian aids are going through. Actually, these 5-point consensus is not really working well. So in that sense, and how the international community, where is the international community?
Well, I think first of all, ASEAN nations, and Thailand in particular, have a great deal at stake in what's going on inside of the country. And from the perspective of this, the number of people who are seeking to get out of the country because of this humanitarian crisis, now the wave of young people that are likely to come because of this conscription, the increased suffering that will be caused by that, with these young people who are needed by families, particularly in rural families, to help provide for the families, them leaving. So that's a huge problem for Thailand, for the region, for the international community. But look at these scam centers, these massive criminal enterprises that are in Myanmar, that are allowed to exist and are allowed to prey on people, not just in this region, 40 countries in the world. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people who are being trafficked into these centers, scamming people from all over the world to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. This is a huge problem. And this is another reason why this crisis inside of Myanmar is not just a Myanmar crisis, it's a regional crisis, but even beyond the region. And I'll tell you something else. The United States Justice Department released findings. They just released a report not too long ago of a sting operation that they engaged, and they found these criminals were selling uranium and yellow cake plutonium. These are materials that are used to build nuclear weapons, and they were trying to, they wanted to sell them, in this case, to Iran. Now, the sting operation worked. They caught the bad guys, but the fact is, those materials used to produce a nuclear weapon came from Myanmar. So we're talking about something that is, of course, the people of Myanmar are suffering the most, but this has great regional implications, has great international implications, and we're all at risk, no matter where we live, by this lawlessness that continues to run apace and run amok inside of the country.
Thank you.
My pleasure.